Indeed, I did say that we're changing gears now to revenue matters right here in the FCT. And we've been joined by the Acting Executive Chairman of the FCT Internal Revenue Service, Mr. Michael Ango. Thank you so much for coming on Sunrise Daily this morning.
Thank you for having me here.
Thank you for coming. Well, we know that last year you were able to generate over 250 billion naira. You exceeded the target that the FCT IRS set for itself. Oh, who sets your target for you?
The FCT administration sets the target.
Okay, so you were able to exceed the target that was set for you by the FCT administration. But tell us, I mean, how does the FCT IRS, function, given that the FIRS, I mean, the name is about to change now, the FIRS is also domiciled right here in the FCT?
All right, thank you very much. So very easy to understand. The FIRS is the revenue administrator, or tax administrator, if you will, for the federal government. The FCT IRS is the tax or revenue administrator for the FCT administration. So as you're aware, this FCT is the Federal Capital Territory. So the FIRS is for the federal, we are for the FCT, just like you would have an IRS in the state, an internal revenue for the state. So our functions are very clearly demarcated. We collect taxes, revenue from residents in the FCT. So essentially personal income tax from individuals working or living in Abuja, other taxes and levies due to the FCT administration. So our jurisdiction is very clearly demarcated. But of course, we have a lot of synergy with the FIRS because what the FIRS does also in a way impacts what we do here, but only within this jurisdiction of the Federal Capital Territory.
Okay, I also know, I mean, that distinction was very important because a lot of people always assume that because Abuja is,
yes,
the capital
it's
exactly. Administered by the federal government as it is, but, they don't know that it also has its own revenue collection service. But what is the revenue used for? Because we know that the budget of the FCT is supposed to be done by the National Assembly. It's in the big budget submitted by the president. So what is the revenue used for?
I'm surprised you're asking this.
Yeah, I have to. You live in Abuja.
You live in Abuja. You drive on the roads that the minister has been constructing. I'm sure recently you've been seeing the street lights. You've heard about all the projects that have been commissioned, the hospitals, the schools, in the area councils, in the satellite towns. But let me just explain further. So yes, you are right that the FCT budget is part of the budget of the federal government because the FCT is funded by the federal government. However, and this is one of the things that we must commend the President and the Honorable Minister of the FCT for. Upon the coming into power of this administration, one of the important things or steps that was taken was to actually extricate the FCT from the Treasury single account. So what you have is that the FCT IRS collects revenue that goes directly to the FCT, okay? And then which of course helps to fund that budget because the budget has to be funded from somewhere. And all that the FCT gets is actually a percent, I think about 1% of the allocation to the federal government from the federal allocations. So the bulk of what you see in Abuja today is actually funded from the revenue that is collected by the FCT, IRS, and also other agencies, for example, like AGs, lands, and AEPB and the rest. But essentially, the FCT has to fund its own activities from the revenue collected, just like you will in a state, just like Lagos gets, of course, VAT and federal allocations. But the bulk of what Lagos State generates also is from, the revenue that it gets. So it's the same thing here. And to answer your question on a more serious note, Maupe, I think that most residents, I wouldn't say all, but most residents of the FCT will attest to the fact that in the last year and a half or two, they've seen significant improvement in terms of infrastructure, in terms of the look and feel of the city. They can see projects going on. You go to Buari, you go to Kuje, you go to Gwagwalada, you can see the impact. It's coming on. I wouldn't say everything has been done, but a lot of work is being done in terms of roads, bridges, even coming to Guzape here where your studio is located, you can see the construction going on. So I think that a lot of work is going on. And in that regard, we really need the support of FCT residents because, like the minister always says, he can't print this money, he can't, mine it from the ground. So we have to collect it from residents of Abuja, and that's one of the things I'm here to talk about in the studio today.
Okay, so maybe we should get to it very quickly, but you mentioned infrastructure, the fact that infrastructure is, yes, we see the minister is commissioning, of course, as you said, I live in the FCT, yes. I drive on the roads, and I do see that in many places there have been, remarkable construction of infrastructure. However, there are some other areas that are still suffering. For instance, teachers in the FCT are always on strike, or have gone too frequently on strike as a result of. So there'll be questions as to what exactly are we properly prioritizing the revenue that we're earning, and why is it that we're building infrastructure but teachers, primary school teachers, are not being paid? You have insights into what exactly is happening there.
There's an education secretariat. There's a mandate secretary for education who I think will be better placed. But I will also say that there are historical issues. And government is a continuum, so we're not going to say that because, certain issues have been inherited, this administration should not solve it. But I can tell you that I'm aware the Honorable Minister has implemented the minimum wage in the FCT. So the least paid employee in the FCT today collects nothing less than 70,000 naira a month. This is also funded, as you know, from revenue. So there will be issues, there will be challenges. Labor issues will never go away. Even if you pay...
So the gradation has been effective?
Yes, of course, it has been. I think you can confirm that. So the issues would always be there. I mean, everywhere. I'm not as well paid as I would want to be paid. But you see, sometimes you also have to make sacrifices and understand that, it's a process. And I'm certain that the Honorable Minister will address all those issues. You can't solve all the problems in one day. But the reality is that we can see progress. Physically, we can see it. If you speak to workers also, they will tell you that things have improved. I know that a lot was done at Christmas, in terms of even providing some foodstuffs and all to workers. So it's a continuum. Government will continue to try. There will always be a time lag between what the employer or the employee wants and what the employer can provide. But if we work together, and part of it is also to pay your taxes, to pay your dues, to pay your levies, to pay your fees, then government will have all that money and then begin to solve all of the problems that are there.
So tell us what the challenges are, with collection of taxes in the FRS. Have you made it easier, seamless? Can I generate my tin from the comfort of my home? Can I pay my taxes from my house?
So there are a number of challenges, but I think for us, the most pressing challenge that we see today is really the lack of knowledge or information on the part of the residents, or the taxpayers, as you will. I think a lot of people are not well informed. We'll take responsibility for part of that, but also I think Nigerians have to then understand that taxes are an integral part of any developed society. And you go to places and people tell you, why should I pay my tax? But you can't ask that same question in the United States or in the UK or in Germany, because over time people have understood, they've imbibed that culture. So I think that's one of the major challenges. On our own part, yes, we need to build better infrastructure for collection of taxes. Yes, you can generate your TIN online. You can, even with your phone, USSD codes, we have that. We're partnering with the Joint Tax Board now. They're using the FCT as a pilot scheme. But also, I think that people's attitudes, essentially for us, is a major issue, because a lot of people earn significant revenues. And if you recall, last year we introduced what we call the High Net Worth HNI office. And we did that because one of the complaints is that, you are taxing workers because they have their salaries deducted, the taxes on their salaries deducted at source, but all of these people who are driving big cars, who are living in big houses, do not pay their tax. So we said, look, we'll focus on the high-earning individuals, and that is really one of the major challenges we have. You'll be surprised to find out that the people who earn the most are the ones who are most reluctant to pay taxes. But yes, again, of course, the city is very dispersed, so sometimes penetrating the satellite towns, going there, trying to explain to them, why they need to comply and all of that is a bit of a challenge. We need to expand, we need more offices, we need more equipment, we need vehicles, we need staff, but all of that is a process. And I can tell you that the Honorable Minister has been very supportive. He's provided everything that we've asked for, and we're doing a lot. We're collaborating with the area councils, trying to get them to also sign on to, the harmonization of taxes and levies.
Which is very important, because some people do feel very harassed, driving their vehicles, and the area council tax collectors are trying to collect taxes from them.
Yes, we've done some work there, and I think you would agree that it has subsided, even though I wouldn't say it's been totally resolved. And this is one of the challenges of any federal system. So you have the federal government, you have states and the local governments. Local governments believe, rightly or wrongly, that they have some authority and some jurisdiction to collect tax and levy. And we don't have a problem. I mean, the laws are there. We have the Constitution. We have the Taxes and Levies Approved List for Collection Act. What we're saying is do it in a manner that, the taxpayer or the resident, you don't have to drive on the road and then someone is standing in front of your vehicle. So we're working with that. We're investing in technology. What we're saying to the area councils is sign up to the portal. So if you want to collect a license fee or something from Maokbe, issue her a demand note. She will pay in one place. And then we'll generate the receipt, and then when she's driving, you don't have to stop her to find out if she has paid, because we'll have a system where you can verify whether if the vehicle is registered, for example, with the Directorate of Road Traffic Services, you can find out if it's a commercial or private vehicle, and then once you find out, you can then impose the levy or dues or anything that vehicle is supposed to pay online in real time, and once it's collected, you can verify. So there's a lot of work doing, but yes, I will agree that there are still some challenges. And it's part of why we need support. We need the FCT residents to all understand that at the end of the day, we live in this city, we work in this city, we earn our income from this city. So it is incumbent upon us to do everything that we can to improve, the living conditions in the city.
Well, I'll just see if Ayo's found any cracks that we left out, Ayo.
Well, just one or two. He spoke to one of them very, very quickly. I'd like to just for him to expatiate on it. Mr. Ango, you spoke about the HNI initiative that you introduced to ensure wealthy residents pay their taxes. I'd like you to take us through how you are communicating with them. That's on the one hand. Just expatiate on that a little further. If they are getting the message, and how come, like maybe the minister himself cannot, approach them. And secondly, perhaps a little more importantly, are political appointees and elected officials also required to file? Because we understand that that's one of the things that you've been asking for, filing of annual returns. Are political appointees and elected officials resident in Abuja also required to file their taxes?
Let me answer the last question first. So yes, political appointees, political office holders, elected or appointed, including the president, starting from the president to the vice president, Senate president, the honorable ministers, they are all required by law to file their tax returns and pay. So they have two sources of income. Most of them will do. They have their official emoluments, and then some of them may have, rents or dividends or investment income, as it were, that they earn. So they are all required, and we've just sent out public notices against the 31st of March deadline. So the tax laws require every resident, and I repeat, every resident of the FCT, whether you're in employment, whether you're self-employed, whether you're a political appointee, I'm required to file my tax returns by the 31st of March 2025. If I fail to do so, or if any person fails to do so in the FCT, we have the powers to impose what we call a best of judgment assessment. We have the powers to impose penalties and interest, and we also have the powers to even take such persons to court. But we hope that we won't get there. And in terms of how we engage with our residents, we've been trying to, reach out in terms of communicating with them. We held a roadshow about 2 weeks ago. We went around the entire city. We'll be holding others in the satellite towns. We've set up, departments and units that essentially communicate on a daily basis. In each of our tax offices, we have a dedicated desk, which is dedicated to taxpayer enlightenment and education. All of us are, focused on ensuring that we are accessible. We send out public notices. We publish our offices and locations. You can walk into any tax office at any time, ask for information, register for a tax identification number, pay your taxes, and even get taxpayer support. We can help you to prepare your returns. We can also help you to
filing tax returns. So that sounds a little novel. I mean, employees oftentimes, I'm speaking from the point of view of an employee now, just assume that generally it's been taken out of my salary. What am I supposed to file again?
So you're very right, Maope, that there's a knowledge gap in that regard, and I'm glad you've asked that question. As an employee, when you earn your income from your employer, he deducts taxes. But what the tax law says is that at the end of the year, 90 days within the start of this year, which ends by March 31st, you as Maokbe, you may have a house, you inherited it, or your husband gave you, or you got a gift. You may have dividends, you bought shares in some companies, you may have some other sources of income. So what the law mandates you to do is to aggregate all of that, including what you've earned from your employer. So all of that is aggregated. What has been paid by deduction from your employer will be taken out. But if, for example, you have dividends you declared, we'll run it through the tax table. If there's an additional income, then you are supposed to pay. And that's the norm everywhere in every jurisdiction. That's what we call direct assessment.
Okay.
So it's both for people in employment and those not in employment.
Mr. Ango, we're totally out of time. I certainly would have loved to take you up a little more. We hope that you can come again before the 31st of March. But thank you so much for coming on Sunrise Daily this morning. He's the Acting Executive Chairman, FCT Internal Revenue Service.